Okay, let's start with the beginning, which will be somewhat of the anatomy on the portion you'll mess with the most that isn't the keyboard. So this thing is called the platen. I don't remember if that one has the indicators on this side or not. I'm gonna have to fight with this autofocus. Maybe I can get it to stay. There we go. So this one has some indicators that'll basically help tell you when you're reaching towards the end of the paper. I don't use it. You kind of get used to it over time. It's just kind of like a quality of life thing. This is just a little support. Keeps it pressed up against that, so when you're typing, you don't get like a flappy thing. I'll show you. These are just little rollers that support it against paper. You can move them if they're in the way. I just kind of like to keep them reasonably centered. Works for me. Return arm, but it also acts as your advance. This little switch tells you how much further it goes. You can hear it's going 3 clicks now. Back it up 1, 2. So that's kind of like your line set. So you can go 1 line, 2 line skip, so 1 space in the middle. It's like when you're typing a paper, if it's double space, single space. This is the release, so it can free float. You'll use that quite a bit when you're adjusting. Same thing here. Oh, we'll get to that in a moment. This is the release for the plat when you're trying to load paper. You can just get it in freely without it clicking, or if you need to make adjustments. If you need to make very fine adjustments, there's a button on the end. If you push that in, you'll be able to make really fine adjustments. Then when you let it go, it'll try to reset into the next ratchet. So that's if you're using paper that has lines in it already, and you're trying to get it to line up perfect. This will release the brake on the underside for the paper. And then, I don't remember if yours has the margin controls at the top like mine does, but what a margin will do, here, let's load a piece of paper in first. And as you may know, if you want the colored face facing you, you want to load it backwards. Once I get it started, I get it about halfway. Then I'll hit this one right here, so it's released. So this is no longer engaging. It's all done by hand. And then what I like to do is make sure that the edges are square, so that way if it comes out and it was more cocked like so, and I need to adjust that because that'll happen all the time, I'll make sure that those are square. So you'll see me constantly readjusting that. This one's just a little tight. It likes to cause the paper to bind. So that's a margin. That's where it wants to stop, at the very far side. And I set that there. I don't want to be too close to the edge of this paper. This was the paper I used a bunch. And then that's the other margin, that's the end. So that'll decide where it sets the widths of your paper. Let's skip that stuff. Okay. So, obviously your ribbon feeds in one particular direction. Swap that. So you can see what's going on here. Let me get this pre-wound. There's a little break here on mine. I think there's one on that one as well. But when you press that, you can freely spin the ribbon. This little indicator decides which direction it's feeding. Or at least I thought it did. Yeah, it does. Okay. So we want to go this way. There we go. So that this way it'll be the take up. There we go. Because this side has all the ribbon on it right now. Struggling for a second. Every time this thing moves, it's attached to move the ribbon with it. So every time you reset it, space acts as a character for it, and this will slowly go. the numbers on this side, I don't remember where they are on that one off the top of my head, but that's how firm you have to push the key. So the higher the number, the harder the key has to be pressed in order to make contact with the paper. I always set it to the lowest. It just works really well, especially as your ribbon gets old. But if you have new ribbon, you might want to set it to a little bit higher, because when you have new ribbon, you'll notice, oh, this one's actually kind of good. It's like the perfect level. You'll notice that it'll actually kind of put ink around the character too, and that's just because it's so new. It'll leave kind of like a smear. So firming that up, it'll have less of that occurrence. Obviously, you've been familiar with the color, so there's a switch on the right. Red is for red, if you have it oriented right, otherwise you'll have it reversed. Black is for black. The third one, you'll notice the ribbon doesn't come up at all. That's just old ink stuck in the slug, what's marking it right now. That's for typing on carbon paper, so it'll just transfer those marks through to carbon paper on the other side. That's what that's there for. When you go to change your ribbon, you'll want to unspool one all the way. I find it's easiest to do it in the typewriter. And then at the very end, you'll see a sharp little hook. What I would do is I just rip the old one off that hook, take the new one, start slowly spooling it on. You might have to pre-poke a little hole to get it on that hook a little easier. So I've had one of these two, one of those hooks broke. So if it's broken, just kind of twist and then start turning it a little bit, and then the pressure will keep it together for a while. And just remember which side that was, because once you get towards the end, it might come undone, and you might have to do it again. When you change your ribbon, it is very important to remember how this is woven through. Take a picture when you undo one side. This is the hardest part when it comes to resetting a ribbon, at least in my experience. It's easily the biggest pain in the ass. Setting your tabs. So I don't know if you use tab, but like I use it for an indentation for a paragraph. You could set how far apart they are. And then I had one that was set for the center, but I've deleted that one on the last take on accident. So that's what the clear is going to be for, and you're set. When you get to a location you want it to be, so let's say I want to set one right there. And that'll be a tab. Perfect. It'll sort through all the other ones that you've set. I think this one will do like up to 8. So, and then say I want to clear this one. I don't need that one. Clear it. Don't need that one. Clear it. Don't need that one. Clear it. So then all I actually have left is these two. The first, and then the 50. So, might take some getting used to for that. You don't have a caps lock. You have a shift lock. So when you press your shift down, press that, and it'll keep it down. And now we are yelling in typewriter. If you need to make an exclamation point, because it doesn't have one, you'll notice, because there's no 1. A lowercase l is your 1. So that for if you need to make like a thing, a lowercase l is your 1. If you need to make a exclamation point, you'll do a period, back over, and then the apostrophe. That'll be how you make your period. There is a question mark already, though. You don't have to do that. Just for period or exclamation points. Silly little things. So let's actually make a note of that. See, there's a typo right there, but I just bold over it. Gotta get through them. If you have a really bad typo, like it's just the whole word is screwed up, what I would do is I just go back to the beginning of the word and exit out and just move on. I have some really good quality cotton paper. It's really dense. Sometimes you can use an eraser and get it off, but if you have fresh ink ribbon or the slugs, which are basically the typeface of these guys, they're called type slugs, are really clean, it'll dig that ink in there really deep and you're not getting it off with an eraser. If you do want to go for whiteout, those little ones that have the roller that do like the little strand, way, way better because all you have to do, go up a couple clicks, put it on there, go back a couple clicks, you're right back in business. They're excellent. What else is there that I'm not remembering? Oh, for this one, I think yours has one too. It's called a margin release. Same idea as with the tabs. When you want to delete that margin, go to the spot where the margin is, release it, go back to where you want to reset it, do your set. I can't remember if yours has that on the top like mine is. That's the hard part. And that's pretty much all of it. There's some like little tricks that you'll learn as you go. Like for this one, because these little support rollers are so tight, I frequently typed like this. But remember how I was saying it gets kind of flappy? You'll hear it. It sounds hollow. So, but that was just something I dealt with for a while. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Yeah, releasing that break also makes it really easy to yank it out if you just wanted to type a little bit. This one has a... Oh, will it work? Oh, it needs to be... There we go. They used to be spring-loaded. Oh, they're spring-loaded to return. That's actually for holding business cards, so you can type on business cards. It's really cool. I don't think that one has it, but if you have weird little arms like that, that's what that's for. Let me see if I have some paper. Oh, here we go. This is a great example. Found these. These are little labels. So what I'll do, let's go down a label. I've always found it's really easy to go to the lowest point. Oh, do you see how it's kind of crooked? Release that break, straighten it all up. Perfect. And then, now you see I need to make this little micro adjustment. That red line is where you want it to be. Pushing this button in, kind of slowly turning, waiting for it to set into that ratchet. Perfect. So now, we're exactly where we want to be for this thing. Oh, excuse me, margin release. I remember what that's for. So you hit the edge of your margin, you want to go further to the left. You can press that and it'll release where that margin stops you. The same thing goes for the other side, because sometimes you're like at the end of a word and you're like, oh, I just need 2 more characters. Press the margin release and it'll no longer stop you. And you can go all the way to the very end. That's what that's for. So then, we'll make a label. What do I want to label? We'll just make a label. Label. Made here. Then, that's the end of that. If we want to try and get below that on a second line, let's try that. Cool. That worked out perfect. So then we got our label. Just remove it. Using this little part right here, that little button for micro adjustments, is really, really key when you're using something that has predetermined margins, like you're filling out paperwork. You want to, you're using like stationery, that might have like lines or artwork or whatever, and you want to avoid that because this is all very rigid. Each click is the height of one character. Each space is exactly one character across. These numbers all indicate character markings. So right here, if you line it up, we're at, what's that, 47. So that's exactly 47 from the very far edge, not from your margin. So that's how you can navigate all that pretty easily. And then you actually have on here a little helpful indicator. It'll tell you where it is, just using the paper as a guide. That's what I set this up for. So that should all line up perfectly, starting at 0, but my first margin begins at 10. So with an indent of 10, and then I can type all the way up to 100. Oh no, excuse me, 95. So that's how you use that. I disabled the bell on both of these. There's a little arm. I think I just bent it out of the way. You can hear it trying to actuate. When you hear that bell every minute and a half, 2 minutes, you get really sick of it in a hurry. If you want that sound, if that's like one of those things you look forward to, flip it over, find the little arm, bend it back into place, mess with this, make sure you got it in the right position, and then you can fix it. And then when you get sick of it, inevitably, you'll bend it right back to where it was. I hope that's all helpful. They're overall pretty simple. The best way to learn them is to kind of fiddle with them yourself, press all the buttons, figure it out. Just remember, don't get frustrated if all of a sudden, for some reason, you only can type in this tiny little window and you can't figure out why it doesn't want to go anywhere else. You've messed with your margins. So I'd use a piece of paper that you intend to type with to set your margins. That way you know how far you want it to go. Maybe you want to be more to the right side, maybe you want to be more to the left side. You know, whatever. It's just user preference at that point. The only thing this one doesn't have that yours does is there's a button on the back and a little arm pops up, and that's to support the paper when it's fresh. So this one doesn't have that. Alright, enjoy it.